Honoring murder victims is now divisive. Democrats in Rhode Island have canceled a mural honoring Irina Zarutska. She's the Ukrainian woman who was brutally murdered by a career criminal in Charlotte, North Carolina. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley defending the move in a statement saying that the murder of the individual depicted in this mural was a devastating tragedy, but the misguided, isolating intent of those funding murals like this across the country is divisive and does not represent Providence. And in Chicago, just a few weeks after college student Sheridan Gorman was murdered by an illegal immigrant, Mayor Brandon Johnson is sounding off on crimes against illegal immigrants. Johnson making these comments on the same day Gorman was laid to rest.
We have to end the assaults against immigrants. We have to get active. First of all, we have to make sure that we're participating in our democratic process. We've already seen elections shift around this country, so things are happening. We have signed multiple executive orders to force ICE out of the city of Chicago.
Greg, just calling back to the first segment, I wonder where he gets his information because it seems like he's only absorbing the information from one side of things.
Oh, it's deliberate. A woman will get pushed in front of a subway train, and Brandon Johnson would call it a hate crime against public transportation. I believe that there's a group of leftists who just don't like people. They don't even like their own people. And I mean their own people, meaning their own flesh, their own color, or else they would try to help them. They love identity. They love ideology more than the flesh and the blood and the soul behind the eyes of the people that they consider collateral. You know, collateral to their march toward progressive utopia, which ends in so many lives. There's no question that we believe that Irina is a victim. And I think that, you know, Democrats probably do. But if we didn't bring her up, would they? Of course not. And we had to hear George Floyd's name every single day and hold back our disgust that a violent felon who was on a lethal dose of opiates became a Christ-like symbol, so vaunted that we suspended our laws and allowed cities to burn billions in dollars of destruction. And people died because the media and the left chose the victim, the approved victim. We need a scorecard for victims. George Floyd, a drug-fueled felon, victim. An illegal immigrant gangbanger, soon to be deported, victim. A young recidivist felon, obviously an oppressed childhood, that makes him a victim. He needs to be paroled in San Francisco. A young woman murdered by a fiend, allowed to roam the streets, not a victim. I don't know why. Is it because she's white? I don't know. A young woman is murdered by illegals, not a victim. Why? Is it because she's white? I don't know. An elderly Air Force veteran pushed in front of a subway train by illegal, dead, not a victim. And I'm not saying they don't think they're victims. I believe they erase their tragedy, which is the message that they don't matter in the priority of victimhood run by the identity police. In a correct world, every female politician would have marched for Irina and demanded justice reform legislation. Judges would be held accountable. But no, even AOC wouldn't speak for the girl who was murdered from her own high school. This is how ideology trumps compassion.
Yeah, it erases it. I don't understand. Emily, is the accusation by the mayor in Rhode Island that the mural was illegal? Why would they? The owners are going to take it down, but why?
Well, I think he might be arguing that it wasn't like a publicly approved, licensed piece of art, essentially, versus a private property doing with it as you will. He also said, and I think that his greater argument was that it doesn't reflect the values of Providence, he said. So the question is, what values then are you reflecting? And I was thinking about all of the, we talked in the earlier conversation about actions, and actions speak so much louder than words. And think about the actions that we have seen throughout the country. So we have that mural painted over. We have, remember, Sheridan Gorman's school paper that apologized for using the accurate legal and factual term illegal immigrant to describe her alleged murderer. What about the exhibit in Seattle all about J.K. Rowling's work? I almost said The Hobbit. The
Tolkien?
No,
Harry Potter.
Yeah, Harry Potter. And her name was not on the exhibit. They had an entire huge museum worth of Harry Potter. But because they said that she was transphobic, her name wasn't even on it. The creator of that universe. Totally.
Wow.
Just like they are erasing all of us. I mean, that's an apt thing. You know, in Berkeley, cops can't get coffee. Like the list goes on about how people are not served proverbially and literally, and that somehow, though, this narrative is what allows them to speak publicly. Like, how is it that people don't rise up and say, actually, my values are that we align with victims. My values are that we prosecute criminals. I had a friend that was, you know, she calls herself a revolutionary. I mean, I say had in the past tense, but I was asking her about the Women's March, if she was going to participate. She said, well, every day of mine is a Women's March. Everything I do is a Women's March. And I think about that all of these actions are demonstrating all of their values. So it doesn't matter really what they're going to say to you, what they're voting. These actions are so much more detrimental. When your police force can't get coffee, when your governor can't have a meal, when you can't paint a mural, paying honor to someone whose life was extinguished too early in a preventable way, what does that say about your values? Plenty.
Jessica, what do you think is motivating somebody like a Brandon Johnson to say what he does in Chicago?
I think he's banking on the fact that only a few people are really going to be paying attention to majority of the things that he's saying, that it's going to, like, we'll talk about it or it might get somewhere on conservative media, but that's not something that most people in Chicago are paying attention to, and he's just going to go about his business. Or he's really a true believer that thinks, I'm here for a finite amount of time and I have this particular agenda and I'm going to do whatever it takes to enact it, even if there are people who live in Chicago, Black and brown people, showing up at town halls telling me that they want a change in the course of action, right? These are not people who want to be Republicans who are not going to turn into Republicans. They're saying a true Democratic Party, a true liberal party is going to treat crime and policing more seriously than it has been. I wanted to say something also on the mural. It seems like the fact that Elon Musk has said that he's giving $1 million towards it had an effect on this. So Musk saw online that it was going up and said, oh, I want to give $1 million. And Elon Musk is obviously a lightning rod political issue, you know, gave whatever, $250 to $300 million to Donald Trump's reelection. And it's on the side of an LGBTQ plus club. And so I think all of that was kind of like a perfect storm. But Mayor Smiley, when this came up again, I was thinking back to the shooting at Brown and how terribly that was handled on every single level of law enforcement. And I would just want my head down and to be focused on, I don't know what you do after something like that happens on your campus or within your district. And then the guy goes on, obviously, to MIT.
Strange thing, Rhode Island pumps out a lot of news for a little state.
I know.
Jesse, it's interesting that a Musk $1 million donation to honor a victim would have this kind of a result when you could get billions of dollars from foreign billionaires for a No Kings protest to AstroTurf, all of that across the country, not the world, really.
Yeah, the Koch brothers, I think, built like the New York Philharmonic. They slapped their name on it. It was like $300 million, and liberals were mad. They still went to the Philharmonic, though. Liberals will step over syringes. They'll step over vagrants. They'll blow off crime. They'll walk by buildings with graffiti all over them. They won't say anything. They won't even try to clean it up. But someone puts a mural of a dead woman who got knifed in her neck by a repeat felon, and all of a sudden there's this like groundswell of liberals that get the mayor of the city involved. Come on, you're a mayor. You're involved with a mural. And this is probably like 9 liberals, right? Probably 9. And they're that loud and that obnoxious that they got the attention of the mayor, and all of a sudden this thing's coming down. Do the liberals want their cities to be civilized? Do they want them to be beautiful? Do they want them to be safe? I don't know is now the answer, because every time there's an option, they always choose disgusting sidewalks and filth. Now, why aren't Republicans allowed to express themselves artistically, emotionally? Why can't we have a mural? Greg hit it. We saw all of a sudden George Floyd every time you went downtown in any city in the country. I see Barack, I see Kamala on the walls, I see Tupac, I see guys I don't even know. But do I say anything?
What about your pride murals?
Sure.
You
can't not see them every time you go downtown in any city. Now, I walk by them, and what do? I don't call the mayor. I don't try to, like, deface them. I say, I respect my fellow Americans, the people that they love, and I keep walking. Why am I more tolerant than all of you?
This is a great question, and we shall discuss it in the break. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.